Have you ever wondered why some ideas spread much faster, much more powerfully than others? Some rumors travel through an entire group in a single day. A scandal can move across the internet in hours. A controversial opinion can suddenly appear everywhere at once. But other ideas, sometimes more reasonable ones, barely move at all. They appear and disappear. So, what determines whether an idea remains small or becomes unstoppable? To approach this question, it helps to look somewhere unexpected. Physics. Among physicists and engineers, there is a very familiar concept, the chain reaction. At its core, the idea is surprisingly simple. A system becomes self-sustaining when a small action releases energy that was already stored inside the system itself. Take nuclear fission, for example. A single neutron strikes a nucleus. That nucleus splits, releases energy, and more neutrons. Those neutrons strike other nuclei, and suddenly the process sustains itself. A tiny initial push has triggered something much larger, but the real source of sustained action was never the neutron. It was the energy inside the nuclei. The same logic appears in something much simpler, dominoes. You may have seen those demonstrations where dominoes start small and gradually increase in size. At the beginning, the pieces are tiny, but at the end, the dominoes are enormous, large wooden blocks that require real force to knock over. And yet, the entire sequence begins with a simple tap of a finger. How can something so small produce something so large? It seems to contradict our intuition. We tend to believe that small actions produce small consequences. We learned from Newton that forces produce proportional reactions. And in many situations, that is true. But in a domino chain, the energy does not come from the push. It comes from the potential energy stored in each domino while it was standing upright. Each piece is already holding energy. All it needs is a small disturbance to release it. The falling domino does not create the next fall. It merely unlocks energy that was already waiting there. A flame spreads only if each burning molecule releases more energy than the spark required to ignite it. If the released energy were smaller than the spark that started it, the fire would immediately die. No propagation, no chain reaction. A careful look at nature reveals a simple pattern. Whenever something spreads rapidly and self-sustains, the initial push is never the main source of energy. The system itself contains the energy. The push only triggers its release. In other words, perpetual activity rarely comes from the force that starts it. It comes from the energy stored in the elements of the chain. Each step releases the next. Now consider ideas. Why do some of them spread explosively through human societies? Why certain narratives propagate more than others? Why do rumors move so easily? Why do ideologies sometimes grow like wildfire? Perhaps ideas and ideologies behave like physics phenomena. Perhaps the power or popularity of an idea does not come primarily from the idea itself. Perhaps the real momentum and energy are already stored somewhere else, maybe inside the human mind, and the ideas are only the spark. Let's indulge ourselves and explore this possibility. But in order to do that, let's pose a more surgical question. Why do some ideas spread so easily and others do not? If certain ideas repeatedly spread with similar momentum, particularly when they share common features, it becomes difficult not to suspect that part of that momentum comes from the structure of the human mind itself. Perhaps the success of some ideas does not come entirely from the ideas themselves. Perhaps the success of certain ideas comes from facilities already present in the human mind. Mental facilities that respond strongly when the right kind of idea touches them. If such facilities exist, then ideas would behave less like external truthful forces and more like keys interacting with locks that already exist in human minds. Some ideas would find those locks, others would not. Most ideas would pass through society with little to no effect, but occasionally, an idea might fit one of those cognitive mechanisms particularly well. And when that happens, the reaction could propagate very quickly. History gives us many moments that suggests this hypothesis. Periods where certain narratives, beliefs, or ideologies spread with astonishing speed and popularity, sometimes with consequences that entire societies would later struggle to understand. Moments that look, in introspect, almost like episodes of collective folly. If such events are possible, then one hypothesis becomes difficult to ignore. The human mind may contain certain structures that make certain kind of ideas unusually easy to adopt and transmit. Not every idea activates them, but the ones that do can spread with remarkable power and popularity. That being said, one final question lingers. Which ideas carry their own power, and which ones spread only by hijacking the human mind?